All right, pre-algebra, today we are going to the Pythagorean theorem. I know you guys learned this last year because I taught it to you. You will definitely want a calculator for this lesson. So, the Pythagorean theorem, okay? When we're talking about the Pythagorean theorem, we're talking only about right triangles, And we're talking about the hypotenuse, which is a part of every right triangle. So the hypotenuse of a right triangle is always opposite the right angle. So in this triangle here we have the right angle, and the hypotenuse is opposite from the right angle, okay? I'm trying to figure out what sorry, this is the longest side. The longest side of a right triangle is always opposite the right triangle, and it is called the hypotenuse. I had to see how I wrote this in my notes. Sorry about that, guys. So always the longest side of a right triangle, always across from the right angle, and it's always called the hypotenuse. The other two sides of the right triangle are called the legs, okay? Pythagorean theorem says one leg, a squared, plus the other leg, b squared, is equal to the hypotenuse squared. So leg squared plus leg squared is equal to hypotenuse squared, okay? So example number 1 says find the hypotenuse of a right triangle with legs of 8 and 15. So that means you go 8 squared plus 15 squared. So that's 64 plus 225, which is 289. So 289 is equal to c squared. How do I get c alone? I take the square root of both sides. C is equal to the square root of 289, which is 17, okay? It's the positive root, okay? It can't be negative because a distance can't be negative, okay? So we know when we're dealing with Pythagorean theorem, we're always going to be dealing with the positive root, all right? Example number 2, find the hypotenuse of a right triangle with legs of 6 and 7. Plug in what we know. We know one leg is 6 squared. We know another leg is 7 squared. That's 36 plus 49. So 85 is equal to c squared. Take the square root of both sides so that we can get c by itself. C is equal to the square root of 85. You can leave this just like this. You do not have to approximate the square root. If it's not a perfect square, square root of 85 is completely acceptable. If you feel the need, go ahead and pop it into your calculator. You get approximately 9.2. But if it's not a perfect square, you're completely fine leaving it as a radical, okay? Skill check number 1. Number 2, find the hypotenuse with legs of 10 and 24. So that's 10 squared plus 24 squared is equal to c squared. So that's 100 plus 576. 576. So that's equal to 676 is equal to c squared. Square root of both sides. C is equal to the square root of 676. Did I? Yes, I did. Okay. Sorry, looking at something again. And that is 26. All right. If you want to practice, the answer to number 1 is 13. The answer to number 3 is the square root of 149. Okay. Example number 3. Find the leg of a right triangle whose hypotenuse is 16 and the other leg is 7. So we're just going to say we don't know A. It doesn't matter if it's A or B. Doesn't matter, okay? Because addition is commutative. Doesn't matter. So A squared plus the other leg is 7. So 7 squared is equal to the hypotenuse is 16. So 16 squared. So that means a squared plus 49 is equal to 256. Subtract 49 from both sides, and you get a squared is equal to 207. Take the square root, and a is equal to the square root of 207. Okay, very straightforward. Skill check number two. Number two, given the hypotenuse and one leg, find the missing leg. So look at number two. It just says 7 and 5. It doesn't say which one is the leg, which one is the hypotenuse. How do you know? By definition, the hypotenuse is always the longest side of the triangle. So we know this has to be the hypotenuse because it's longer, okay? So that means a squared plus 5 squared is equal to 7 squared. A squared plus 25 is equal to 49. Subtract 25 from both sides. A squared is equal to 24. Take the square root of both sides, and a is equal to the square root of 24. You can leave it just like that, okay? If you want to challenge yourself to practice, the answer to number 1 is 15. The answer to number 3 is 11. Okay, by definition, if a squared plus b squared is equal to c squared, where c is the longest side in the triangle and it is across from the right angle, then you have a right triangle. If a squared plus b squared is not equal to c squared, then you do not have a right triangle. So example number 4 says you have a triangle with 3 sides. The 3 sides are 12, 35, and 37. Is this a right triangle? Well, if it is, that would mean that 12 squared plus 35 squared is equal to 37 squared. Let's see if it is. 12 squared is 144. 35 squared is 1,225. 37 squared is 1,369. 144 plus 1,225 is in fact 1,369. So those are equal to each other. So yes, this is a right triangle. How about a triangle that has sides of 8, 12, and 14? 8 squared plus 12 squared, is that equal to 14 squared? Let's see. Okay, 8 squared is 64, 12 squared is 144, 14 squared is 196. 64 plus 144 is 208. 208 is not equal to 196, so no, this is not a right triangle. Okay, skill check box number 3, number 2. We have sides 10, 20, and 22. So we're going to go 10 squared plus 20 squared. Is that equal to 22 squared? Okay. 10 squared is 100. 20 squared is 400. 22 squared, I don't know what that is. But 22 squared is 484. Is 100 plus 400 484? No. It's 500. 500 is not equal to 484. So number 2 is no. It is not a right triangle. Number 1, if you're practicing, the answer is yes. Number 3, if you're practicing, the answer is yes. As you move through this lesson in Part C, you do have some story problems. My tip to you is to draw pictures. Draw pictures that include right triangles. That's going to be your BFF for those.